So we are so lucky today. We get to grill John on all of his experience as a DZone core member, zone leader, an MVB. He's done everything there is to do at DZone and outside of DZone too. But you know, one of our most probably prolific writers on DZone. I think I looked this morning. I think you're up to 325 articles on DZone or something like
Yeah,
that,
that's
something
right.
crazy.
Yeah.
And over 20 million page views. Just imagine how many people have read your content. That's kind of mind blowing when you think about how many developers there are in the world. It can't be many more than that. It might be like 25, 30 million.
I don't even know. I've seen a lot of pull requests in my day, so I think that number's probably right.
Yeah. So it's safe to say, in theory, you've reached a large majority of the global developer population. Now there's probably a bunch of the same people reading the
Oh
book.
yeah, I think so too. Especially when
But,
there's a
in
series,
theory,
right? Yeah.
yep. But, if you just play those numbers out, I mean, it's just a massive amount of people that your content has touched. So I wanted to start off by asking, well, first, for people that may not know you, maybe you could introduce yourself and what you do, and then briefly talk about maybe your experience. What made you want to start writing?
Okay. Yeah. So, man. So why am I in IT? That's a fun answer because I went to college in Boston, Berkeley College of Music. I wanted to be Quincy Jones, right? So I go to the school. I'm out there. And I shortly realized that I'm not the only one that wants to be Quincy Jones, right? And then you realize that, wow, this is a pretty fancy music school and there's people that are a lot better than me. So thought, what are the chances of that happening, right? So I then transferred back to Butler University in Indiana and one private school to another. Didn't even think about how much that was going to cost in the long run. But anyway, so I changed and I wanted to get a business degree because that sounded solid, way better than a music degree. And then I liked economics, so I got a business management economics double major, right? And so while I'm at the school, I didn't want to do computer science because COBOL bored me. I didn't want to do that green screen development. It just didn't resonate with me. So I'm going to school and they have this computer lab at the college, and then they're looking for somebody to like work in the lab. So it's like, hey, I want to do this. Before long, I'm working there most days a week through the week, and then I started taking PC programming classes, which weren't COBOL. And so I get to graduation, and if you were to ask me what's next, it's like, well, I guess I'm going to be a bank manager. So I'm looking at the one ads because this is like the 90s. There was no internet, right? So I'm like looking at the paper. It's like Nobel NetWare. Wow, I know that. PC programming, I know how to do that. And there's all these jobs, right? And so I had no idea I was like entering the industry at the time whenever PCs were about to yeah, it was just about to take off, right? And so that ended up the dumb luck that got me into this role. So since 1992, I've been in some aspect of information technology, called information systems back then. And for most of that career, I've been in consulting, which kind of boils up to the position I'm in now, which I'm more architecting or leading bigger project initiatives for a company called Clean Slate Technology Group, which ironically, 3 or 4 of the guys that I work with today are the same guys I worked with in the late 90s when I first got into consulting. So it's like a round trip, come back to that, which is pretty awesome. And so then how did the writing come about? Well, I had a blog, and the first thing I did was I played Crisis, and I thought it was the most amazing game ever. And I thought, you know what? I love this story. And so as I played the game, every night I would go and play a part, do some screenshots, and I would write the story as if I'm living it, right? So I put a blogspot account. It's like JV Mach 67 in Crisis, and you can like go through the entire game, like just see screenshots of me talking about what's going on, made up stuff. It was fun. So then I thought, okay, well, maybe I want to do some blogging about stuff like religion or technology. And I'm doing that, and I post stuff. I get all excited. There's like 5 people that read it. I'm like, you kind of get bummed that nobody cares, right?
Yep.
So then here I am in consulting, and my boss said, "Hey, John." I said, "What?" He said, "You're going on a new project tomorrow." I was like, "Great, great, great." He goes, "Oh, by the way, they think you know JSF theme. They think you know it." It's like, okay, I didn't even know what it was. I mean, I knew Spring, but I didn't know about theme. So I do a Google search, and I find this ref card. I'm like, "What the heck's a ref card, right?" And it told me in 2 pages everything I needed to do to fake it about Seam so I could get to understand it and actually get started on the project. So that was from DZone, right? And so when you sign up for the ref card, you start getting these email messages. And they were great. Like once a week, it's like, wow, that's a cool article. Well, one day there was this article that said, want to make some extra money? Want to write with DZone? Become an MBB. So I reached out to the guy, and before he knew it, like a month later, I started writing. And so what was really cool about the program is we started off syndicating 6 or 8 articles a month, which was reading the blog and bringing it in. Then we had the opportunity to write some original material. Then as that matured, we got the choice: do you want to syndicate or write? And I went for the write option because whatever I came to your team with, it was always with open arms. It's like, yeah, let's give it a try. Let's see what happens when it sticks. And there's been some articles that if there was a Mystery Science Theater for DZone, I'm sure that I would have several. I mean, there was one that was called IT Thrill Seekers Conquer the Skills Shortage. Nobody read it. I mean, I don't even think my mom read that one. And so it's like I could just see them like ripping me apart, like, dude, that's the worst thing ever. So kind of that's how I got there. And throughout multiple content managers and stuff, it's been cool to watch DZone grow and grow. So it's been an honor for me to be part of this, and I look forward to everything that I write every month. So that's kind of the 5-minute answer, probably.
Yeah, no, that's a good answer. It's really interesting. I had no idea about the kind of the the kind of the journey you took to get into IT. That's so
Yeah.
interesting. And I wonder, do you feel like the writing that you're doing is actually kind of converges or brings together all the kind of things you did in your past? Because creating music is pretty open-ended and creative,
Oh yeah.
and writing is in a lot of ways similar, and I'd say programming is in a lot of ways can be similar too. But like, is that one of your, do you think, like, if you look back, that's one of the reasons why you like writing?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And I think that background is why I had some success early in my career, because having a business degree, being able to express yourself and to be able to program was that triangle of, of skills that was able to really produce features. And so that ultimately led to being able to, write articles, original content. And that creative side is why I would think, hey, I really like to watch Dateline. Wow, how does Dateline apply to my IT career? Or, wow, who's the Tiger King of technology? Or I'm watching my son play Call of Duty. I was like, what can I learn by watching this? You're watching him play. And then I started getting even more fun with it because people were like reading the articles. It's like, well, everybody's talking about Kotlin, but that seems like a mullet to me. That's like the mullet of programming languages. And I took some slack for that, but I think in 10 years, people will say, whoa, he did Kotlin. We'll laugh about it. But maybe not. Maybe it'll be just as powerful as Java. I don't know. But I try to think of things that would like catch my eye, and make people want to read the article.
Yeah, so that, if I, as I'm going through your blog roll, just all the stuff you've put together, there are some wild titles in there for sure. How it sounds, so do you start, how when does an idea strike you for writing?
Oh
How
yeah,
does that
yeah, that's a
happen?
great, yeah. And I was just talking to my friend David Poindexter about this like 2 days ago because he's starting a blog for Clean Slate, and he's a great Twitch person. He's got some quotes that I want to use somewhere. So the first thing is I have this document in Sublime. It's just a text editor, and it's just got something pops in my head. I write it down, right? It's like that Seinfeld where he was writing down his dreams in the middle of the night, but they made no sense the next day. I've got sort of the same thing going where you just want to capture your thoughts. It's just a bullet part, and it becomes into something bigger. and then you pair it with one of the favorite shows I watched. I don't watch a lot of TV, but it sounds like I do, obviously, from my titles. But Lost was a show that I loved, and there's this Lost approach, and that's what I was telling David Poindexter about, where I heard that they wrote the pilot and the final episode in one setting. So three or four episodes at once they wrote, and the other 6 seasons plus 4 episodes or whatever that was all written in between after. So they knew where they were going, they knew where they started, and so I use that approach where I outline, and then I write my intro, and I wish this would save my ear. And then I write the conclusion before I actually write the middle of my article. So that's the formula that's the most successful for me.
Wow. That explains a lot about the Lost TV series.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's an interesting approach to writing. So you're basically, well, I guess the first question I have is you have this kind of document of ideas. How many ideas are in there? Is it just everything that comes to mind? You just drop
everything
it in
that comes to mind. Yeah. Like David Poindexter said one time, he said, when you like the programmer that you're working with, it's a pair programming event. But if you hate the guy, it's a code review, right? It's like this thought. It's like, yeah, that's so true. It's like, I want to work with you. I hate you. Let me tell you what's wrong with you. That kind of thing. So it's just, that's a line. And honestly, that really bad one, I was at a corporate event down in Atlanta, and this guy was talking about the skill shortages, and I thought I had enough for an awesome idea, but that thing just falls.
So you never know what's going to work and what's
not. Oh
no.
No, and there was one that there was one, and I have some notes here. I was trying to find where it is, where I talked about the ad car model, which I never heard of before. It's like a IT change management process, and I thought the article did well. Well, I started seeing the hits go crazy, and turns out there was one or two repositories where they linked to that as how they're going to solve problems. It's like, wow, I had no idea, and it was really cool to see that somebody else pick up that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That happens all the time when I'm looking through content on DZone. Like, I'm always surprised where things are getting referenced on the web, and like who finds it interesting. It's such a crapshoot. Like, you just never know what people are going to find super interesting. I mean, you can make some educated guesses. You're probably best off. It sounds like what you do is you really just write about what's interesting to you.
Exactly.
And it sounds like you're interested in a lot of things, though.
Yeah. So then when you get to like a series, I always talk about like, well, I want to learn something.
Yep.
So, but I want to document it in a way that I can reflect on it and understand where things were good and where they were bad. Like a retrospective that you do with software development. And then it gets to the point, well, this worked out pretty well. I want to go ahead and share this. And then you put in the ARC concept. So like I was on AWS, I wrote an application for my mother-in-law, and I thought, this Heroku thing sounds awesome. But I've got all this stuff with AWS, and honestly, the AWS stuff was slowing me down because they would change something, and I had to go figure it out. And like, I don't want to be a DevOps person. I want to write code. I want to write feature code for my mother-in-law because I don't have a lot of free time. So that journey became, I'm going to go from AWS to Heroku. That was the journey. And then within that, we had like 4 or 5 articles in the series. It's like, okay, here's the first thing we're going to do. Well, what is Heroku? What do I have to do? What's my data model going to look like? How am I going to get the data there? Now, how does things change? And now let's do the conversion. Now let's reflect back to how are things better or worse? And did I save money? So it just naturally starts flowing, and it all builds course by having a strong outline.
How do you think about, so like, you're the one doing the work and writing about the work. How do you think about writing it for somebody who isn't also simultaneously doing the work, that may be new to the concepts or whatever? Like, how do you think about who's going to end up reading your content?
Yeah. So then I'm relying heavily on the tags, and I really like the tag design that you have at DZone. It kind of keeps me honest, because when I start the article, I think, okay, here are the key items that I'm going to tag. So if somebody finds those, I'm going to expect some type of experience with that tag. But at the same time, I try to attach the source code so that maybe they're following, but maybe not. But if nothing else, they can pull down, they can download that repository and actually get things working themselves, and then step through the code and bridge the gap. There was a series I did on Random Generator, this Java library. Like 3 weeks ago, a student at some high school in Pennsylvania reached out to me over email and said, "Hey, I'm going to put my picks into the bracket at school, and I want to use Random Generator." So I actually worked with him and showed him how to use Maven and introduced that to him and let him pull it in the project and then helped him write the code where he could interface with that library. So it was like an unexpected, really awesome experience.
Just some random kid reached out
Some kid, yeah.
found your content.
And I honestly thought it was somebody from work messing with me at first, but then he kept showing, diving deeper, wanting to go deeper. So it was pretty cool. I was
So
grateful for that.
do you see that the role of writing as kind of a form of mentorship?
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's kind of like the same thing as whenever you do a code review, a peer review, a merge request, whatever you want to call it. You got to look at it as an opportunity to make somebody better, right? To where, hey, this is where you can do it, and then to be willing to look at something and say, wow, I'm learning something too, right? So there's many times when I've written articles that halfway through I'm realizing that I didn't know it as well as I thought I did, and now I'm learning from what I'm actually writing.
Yep.
And then there's that 326th article that was online for like an hour before I had to delete it because my foundation was totally wrong, right? I put it in the Java forum, which is like the Java portal, which is the most aggressive portal, I think, at DZone. And I made a fundamental mistake in my code, right? In my whole approach. And a guy called me out on it, like it wasn't even there for 15 minutes. And so I reached out to my friend Russell, longtime Java person, and I told him, he said, dude, he's actually right. There's nothing we can do about this. And so I basically had to delete that article because there was no way I could like resurrect it. So
that's super interesting though. So has that kind of interaction happened before? Because we obviously we have an editorial team at DZone and we review stuff, but we're not, the people editing content aren't longtime practitioners in the space and stuff. So how often is it that something goes up and you get either like awesome, commenting I think is few and far between right now, but I would say if a subject is worthy, you can get some really good conversation. Does that happen? Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead. I was just going to ask, what's your experience with that? Yeah.
So for a while we were doing MuleSoft at Clean Slate. We were leading the meetings, and the thing that would crack me up in those sessions is I would lead a session and I would ask the group, questions, and everybody would just sit there and not respond. It's like, come on, help me out, right? It's like, are you using CI/CD or not? How hard is it to raise your hand or not, right? So I feel like the comment section can get that way, where people want to say stuff, but they really don't. But then I went on this project and they were storing the images in the database. And remember, I've been since 1992, and DBAs have told me, don't ever store a binary in the database. You'll lose your job, right? Don't do it. And so I go on this project and that's what they're doing. So I put an article out there. Can we store, binary objects in the database now? Because if you ask Oracle, they're like, yeah, and here's why. You ask my friend, the old DBA, well, he'll tell you this is why, right? And so they have all these comments of people saying, well, it's good this way, it's bad that way. So it was like the best thing ever because I got real practical database people talking to me and developers on each side. So in the end, it's like a 50-50. I don't think it's what it was before,
So do you think that in your experience, what are the types of things that get people to actually engage in dialogue? Controversial stuff or
controversial things that they're passionate about, right? And
yep.
I don't know the stats, but I feel like the Java portal is where the most comments are. If you were to do an aggregate, I would think that's what they are because I've written a lot in Agile, don't really get anything. The web devs kind of the same way, but the Java one, you got to be on your toes to post in the Java one, and I think that's the best thing ever, right?
Yeah, I can confirm that is the case. That's where most of the dialogue happens. But that's also where I'd say the longest tenured DZone members, like they really hang out, right? Most people in the Java zone are people not unlike yourself who've been doing programming for a long time. But also, I think what you found, it sounds like, is like you said, they're passionate. They are passionate. And so
Yeah,
like if
yeah.
you can find the right topic, but if you hit the right, the wrong chord, people are going to let
Oh
you
yeah.
know.
Yeah, that's fine, and I like that. So in when I talk to people now, like not everybody's going to want to be a writer, right? Not everybody's going to want
Yep.
to do that. But you talk about, okay, well, 20 million views, which I'm super grateful for. I never ever thought it would happen, especially because like my first article got 3,000 views. That was more than all of my personal blog combined, right? So to think of hitting that number is just crazy, and I'm so grateful for your team. But what I tell people is you may not want to be a writer. Like my friend Russell, he does YouTube and Twitch TV on this blended software concept. It's like, let's take an idea and run with it. A guy that I work with named Alex, he builds keyboards on Twitch, right? He gets the keys, he solders them together. And then of course David Poindexter, he's Robert Tables on Twitch. He's really popular. He'll just go on at 4 o'clock every day and he'll say, this is what I think we're going to do today. And he doesn't even know anything about it, but he just walks through that process. And the beauty of him is like, I'm just going to put myself out there and we're going to try to figure out this problem with GraphQL or something. So those are their passions. And the key is to find out what motivates you, what makes you passionate. Me, I'm always looking for something to write about, something to learn and put it to the benefit of others in a way through print, because that's the best way I can do it. I'm terrible. Even if we watch this again, I'm gonna critique myself to death because why did my headphones not stand, and why did I say that then? But I'm more of, let me write it, let me go through it 2 times, let me have your art editors look at it, and then we're going to be ready to tell everybody about it. Whereas the others, they're just ready to just go for it. So that helps, right? To have that passion and let that drive, because it becomes the result of your product.
It's interesting you say that because I actually think you'd be awesome at, like if you had your own YouTube channel or something.
Oh
I
my
think you
gosh,
you
I don't
got the
think so.
personality for it.
Yeah, but I say the wrong thing, and then that guy from the Java thing like trolling me every day, and I don't want that.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. You can just hit the delete button on an article if it's wrong.
That's right.
There is something
So
different, I think, about the creative process for what you do though than like streaming video too.
yeah, it's true. It's true. Yeah. And
And
then and some of the 20 million. The other thing I want to bring up, because I put some notes down, is like I have Clean Slate Technology Group who are constantly like putting me out there. And as you guys have like talked about this event, they've been like sharing that, retweeting it. It's been a wonderful experience. And then there's a lot of followers that I have on Twitter that will retweet things, and it's like so cool to see my article. And then today I'm looking for that AdCar article, and I found like 5 articles of mine that are on another site altogether, which is like great. I don't care. It doesn't matter. We just want to get the content out. So that's what I think happens is people will take things and share it that they see benefit with, and then we see the result of that through the page views. And I think that's an awesome service that DZone offers.
yeah, so that kind of brings me to one thing I wanted to ask about, which is why do you do this? Why do you write so much?
Okay. I hope wasn't muted there for a second. I pushed my
just
mute
a
button. So
just a fraction of a second, but yeah, so
yeah.
you mentioned the page views, and like you said, you weren't really in it for that, but so why do you write so much?
It's that creative spirit, right? To find the outlet, and that opportunity, right? For a while we were getting paid for DZone. That's not a thing anymore. But I realized that's not really what it's about. It's about expressing yourself, and it's almost parallel to that open source type movement where,
Yep.
hey, I can show somebody how to convert from AWS to Heroku, or how to do Rollbar, or how to do something with GraphQL because I wanted to learn how to do it. So it's that giving back. I mean, it's no surprise I'm closer to the end of my career than the beginning. So what would I wish that younger me had? And that would be things that I'm putting on DZone, I would guess. How can you
That's
learn
a
from me?
really cool way to
Yeah.
look at it. That's a really cool, and I think that is probably the one unifying. That's one thing that I think is unique in the software development space, especially, and it may come from that open source mindset. But it's like
Yeah.
most of the people I think that end up writing on DZone aren't doing it because they're motivated by money or page views or something. I mean, some are, some are motivated. They're building a personal brand or something, but a lot of them just want to help their peers and kind of share their passions, which is, I think, a really cool. I mean, that's kind of like the truest form of like creative expression when you just want to share with other people. And so
I
do you
totally
feel
agree.
like you get fulfillment out of that? Is it like fulfilling? What is the most fulfilling when when you end up writing and putting something out there? What really
Yeah.
makes you feel good?
Well, yeah. So seeing people do it, right?
Yeah.
But then I worked with a guy named Brian Everly. He's a CTO. He's awesome. He's a CIO, CTO, both of those. And he said to our team one time, you have to remember that your brand is what you're going to have always. And it became a DZone article. And it's been picked up by several. It's like a train of thought. It's like, you're going to go work on this job and you're going to leave. And maybe people are going to love you or hate you, but you're the only one that's going to market you. So whenever I look back and I want to reflect back on my career, I would think, well, what did I do? Well, yeah, I worked for that insurance company, or I was a consultant. But to now look and say, wow, 325 articles, that's kind of cool. Hopefully somebody saw value in that, because that creative side. If you would ask me 20 years ago, it's like, yeah, I want to write a novel, I want to write a book, I want to write something like that. But I don't think that's the real goal for me. And I don't even know if it's the real goal for the future. People don't want to sit and read a huge book as much as they like, I want to digest this one little segment. And maybe I'll want this one tomorrow, but maybe not. But the other person might. So I think it's like trying to, like, in the music metaphor, to try to release a whole album versus one song. Maybe the days of doing an album are kind of going away, where we just want a song. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I totally get it. And I think it makes it less daunting creatively too, if you look at it that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, and I mean, how many books have you read where it's like halfway into it, you can't wait to the end, and then you start kind of realizing how it's going to end, and you're like, man, I wish this just would have stopped, because it's like the cheesy ending. It's like,
Yeah, totally. Same with albums.
oh yeah, well that's so when I lived in Miami in the mid '90s, and everybody said, it was right after Hurricane Andrew, you need to move up here, and in Broward County, and don't live in Dade County. It's the hurricane and stuff. So, and I did. It was a 30-mile drive, right? A 30-mile drive, and what I didn't realize is it took 90 minutes to do the 30-minute drive. So this is the mid '90s. There's not MP3s. And so I would listen to the radio. I was like, whoa, I like this song. This song's great by this band, Outcast or whatever they were called. So I buy the CD. Again, you can't preview it. There's no Amazon yet. And that's the only song that's worth anything on the CD. So I had this string of like 12 CDs that I bought for one song. And now I'm in the car, like switching the CD out when I'm trying to like creep along. And it became kind of frustrating. So yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah. Yeah.
That's it. No, it's a good anecdote. So my thought is like, you're looking back, you have 325 articles. I wonder if we can do like a best of publication though, kind of
Oh
like
wow.
the Eagles best of collection,
Yeah. Well, and I was thinking about this because I was listening to music earlier. I'm a big Rush fan, and it said remastered by one of the songs. And I'm like, what? I don't even know what remastered is. Is it just a marketing term to just sell it again? Because I'm listening and I'm listening to the unremastered and the remastered. I don't notice a difference. And I don't think it's because I have defective ears. I think it's all smoke and mirrors. So maybe we could get in that game too. I don't know.
Yeah, we could remaster all your old works.
we took out the space between the period and the next sentence, so we took out one of those. So instead of two, there's one, but it's great. You're gonna love it.
I mean, hey, that's kind of that's the name of the game in publishing, whether it's
Yeah,
music or content. That's
yeah.
why they have to buy new school books every year.
Oh yeah, that's a whole different subject.
Do you
Man.
Is there an end game for you, or do you think you're going to keep writing just always?
Well, I used to get worried whenever I get the monthly email messages from before it was when Michael Tarrington was around.
Yep.
I always got worried when there was a new message that came in because I'd never hear from him. It's like, oh man, what did I do? Am I going to lose my job? What's going on? So I don't know. I like writing, and I work with a guy, the Dev Spotlight. I help them out with like fleshing through some ideas. I really enjoy working with Michael Bogan, and so that's been a plus. Which DZone introduced me to him, so he's a great guy. But I just want to keep writing because that's what makes me excited, right? At the end of the day, I mean, I love my job that I work, my full-time job, and I can't believe it, but my wife's actually printing something right now. I don't know if you can hear that, but let's see what it is. Maybe she'll make a cameo. Oh my gosh! So I got to tell this story about
Yes,
the clean
please do.
slate thing. Yeah. So after the DZone Awards ceremony, it's like the clean slate. They have the Brando. Oh my gosh, Sid and Brando. It's a weekly talk show that they do, just kind of for fun. They started with whenever COVID started, and so it's a weekly show, and so they wanted me to come on, and so they recorded on Friday afternoons. And here she is. So there's Nicole. She's walking through. Say hello to everybody on the
Hello.
broadcast there.
Oh, is this the fireside?
This
Oh, let me warm my hands.
Yeah, warm your hands. Oh man,
Fireside chat.
it sounds like we should be interviewing her.
Yeah, you could learn a lot about me from Nicole. We've been together since before the DZone started, so she's been through the whole time. And so anyway, so you know they're doing the call. They're recorded on Friday for a Monday release, right? And so our son, who's like 3.5, he sometimes he takes a nap, and whenever he does, he comes in and gets a kiss before nap time. Well, that time he didn't. That time he had used the bathroom and she hadn't put a new pull-up on him yet.
Oh my god.
And so through those doors behind me, we're doing the live call. His naked bottom comes like right into here. And so like I didn't tell her we were recording because we just did the award show. It was like she was tired of hearing about it, right? So it was like, I'm not gonna tell you about it. It's gonna be a short call. So that's what happened right after. It was pretty crazy.
That's hilarious. That was during the Sid and Brando show.
Yeah, the Sid Brando show. And I have the clip, but I know we can't show it here, of course. But I kept the clip of that action that got cut out because it was just too funny.
I think you should post it in an article on DZone.
I will. Yeah.
So I want to ask you a few questions about kind of returning to the creative process.
Sure.
For the people here that are, writing or thinking about writing. One thing I think that stands out about a lot of your content is the headlines.
Okay.
Really good at writing headlines.
Yeah.
What is that process like for you? And what do you think about when you're writing a headline?
Okay, well, the headline's almost what always happens first. And the big thing, right? Because again, the Java forum, there was a time when Oracle threatened to charge for Java use before they actually started charging for it. And it was going to be around the if you're using Oracle on your cash register or something like that. But I did an article. It's like Oracle's going to charge you now. And then instantly I got 250,000 hits, right? It's like, whoa, I hit the jackpot. And I felt like that was really close to the clickbait thing. So what I always try to be really careful with is I don't want to be like that guy that nobody wants to read the articles because it's always fake. The stuff you see on Facebook, like click here to find out what happens next. I don't want to be that guy, but it is tempting. But almost always that's where it starts with. And we suffered or really enjoyed, whatever you want to call it, the Tiger King series. And I thought, wow, there's some interesting characters. It's like, wow, we got interesting characters in IT. Who's the Tiger King of technology, And so that's where that article came from. And it's then do the outline and say, okay, here's going to be who I think they are, and let's write the intro, let's write the conclusion, and let's fill it in. So that's again that whole flyover of how I do the article.
So it all starts at the headline or the idea. Capture. It sounds a
Yeah.
lot like you're a stand-up comedian in a sense.
Oh my gosh. I don't think that's like, yeah, you think that, right? And I thought, wow, that'd be cool to try it. But it's like some of the stuff I think is funny, I don't think most people would think. And my ultimate goal would be is if Java 1 like became a thing again and people really wanted to go, I would want to keynote that because I've got a lot of funny jokes or things that have come in over the years that I think would really be a hit, but at the same time would probably like fall flat on my face. So again, that's like the live Twitch versus writing in a DZone. I feel more comfortable here, right?
Yep. And so you start with the headline or the
Yep.
idea, and you
Yeah.
develop that out. Have you had a lot of ideas that don't turn into articles?
Oh, that's on the backlog. So yeah, I mean, I should pull that up and mention a couple things. But one of them that I wrote that I really like is like the series The Matrix kind of intrigued me, right? Because it was supposed to be a fake world. But then I'm like, wait a minute, I'm a feature developer and I can't even like make it so that I can't even make it so this code actually works. So how am I going to have like a realistic environment, you know, that people could think is real, right? You know, there's going to be a candle like burning over here in the corner. It's just going to disappear. And I'm like, what the heck, right? So that's where that whole article is like how I know it's probably not real. And I wanted to add probably because I'm not quite sure we're not living in the matrix. And that's almost something we should reread now because of 2020 was really a wacky year. And I wrote that before, just like things just don't make
Totally.
sense, but maybe we are, right? So let's see whether, oh, and then, so then the whole Java 1 thing, what that became, the keynote was the code commenting patterns. And in that article, that Michael
Yes.
gave that the article, I didn't have that title, right? I came up with like, it was like stupid code remarks I've seen over the years. And it's like, oh, we're going to change it to this. I was like, well, that's great. But so that's a case where my article title wasn't as great. And so maybe Michael's the guy that we should give all the homage to because he really got me thinking, write a good title, right?
Man, we should get him. We should have invited him here. I'm sorry we
Yeah.
didn't get him here. Yeah, that. Well, I asked that question because I think it's often an overlooked piece for a lot of writers. Because if you think about it, most people on DZone or elsewhere, but specifically on DZone, there's only a few places they're gonna find your article. It's either through a Google search, so the first thing they're gonna see is the title, or it's in an email that we send out, or it's on one of our our home pages. So really, it's all people have to work with to decide if they want to read it or not.
Yeah. And I'll tell you the hardest thing for me is that TLDR, the too long didn't read.
Yeah.
I struggle so much with what to put there because you're supposed to have a little bitty box of data and it's like, what do I say? And so your team is always way better at me than coming up with those things.
What's challenging about that is just because you cover so much ground in an article.
I don't want it to be copy and paste from the article.
Right.
So am I failing because I can't come up with 180 characters that describe what it's about? And maybe I am. I don't know. It's just that's where I struggle.
I don't know. My thought was always like, if somebody can distill their idea down into that size, then maybe it's a very clear and concise idea. But I think you're right. There's a lot of gray area in there. Like, who knows what you're going to cover end to end in an article, and it may be 10 different concepts you touch on. So I get that.
I also struggle with the length, right? I still don't know to this day what's a good length. You know, if you read it in 3 minutes, does that give you what you need, or do you want 9 minutes? That's where I always struggle, and I feel like my current thought pattern is introduction, conclusion, and 3 to 4 topics in the middle, and whatever that comes out to be is what I feel comfortable writing with. And if it gets to be more than that, that's when I stop and say, wait a minute, is this really more of a multi-article type of thing?
Yep.
So,
do you think it depends? Like, have you seen any noticeable? I mean, even if you don't have the real data behind it, do you have a sense of like what length of an article tends to do the best for you?
I really don't. I was kind of hoping you guys would have those metrics.
We do have those. We can look those up for sure, and we probably should know. I should probably know those better than I do, but I definitely think it's somewhere in the middle. It's not like people don't like super long. I mean, nobody reads long stuff on the internet, period.
No, true.
And then the short stuff, I think you hit on an important point, especially with the headlines that you put out there. It's like you want to be able to deliver on that, and it's probably really hard to do that in a really, really, really short article.
Where we can though is we were able to be one of the first ones to release some topics, right? Like whenever the data breaches happen, I don't remember who was, if it was Michael or whoever it was, is like, dude, this is happening. Can I get something out there real quick? And he like made it happen, right? It was like
Yep.
maybe it was 6 or 7 paragraphs, but it was like breaking news from DZone, which was pretty awesome because that did well. So I like that. Your
Yep.
team has always been super accommodating to say, "Wow, we need to push this out as soon as possible." So that's great.
So then
From
my question would be, how do you find time to do all this writing? I mean, you have a full-time
Yeah.
job, right?
Oh, I do. And
And
last
kids
year,
and everything.
yeah. So I have a very understanding, spouse, right? So she knows that this is my passion. I've worked crazy hours the last 2 or 3 years. Working from home is definitely adds to that. And the other part is kind of genetic, that my whole life I've not really had to where I sleep more than 5 or 6 hours a night. So I get up early, I work, my son gets up, I spend some time with them, then I work the rest of the day, have family time, and then the evening is typically when I do the writing because that's, it's quiet, the lights are dim, I can be focused on being creative at that point.
Do you feel like that's the best time for your brain to be creative?
I think it's that and first thing in the morning. It's the worst time is probably afternoon when it's like I get a little bit of anxiety of like, wow, what do I have to get done before the end of the day? Wow, the end of the day is like 3 hours away,
Yep.
that kind of thing.
And
But
how has your writing helped you in your work?
oh yeah, 100%. It's very good to be able to say, what's really cool is I was on a project with an insurance company. I was only there one day a week helping them. It was MuleSoft stuff. And I had a guy come up to me and he said, yeah, I started looking at reactive programming because you kind of mentioned it. And I did a Google search and the article that I found was yours. It's like, oh, wow. He had no idea I was a writer. And the article that popped up first was the one from DZone about reactive programming.
That's awesome. So it sounds like you have a lot of different stories of where people have found your writing and connected with you over it. Is that just a happy coincidence? I mean, not happy coincidence, but is that just a happy byproduct of it, or is that something that you really cherish and look forward to?
Oh, I definitely look forward to it because if people are finding value, then I think we're doing the right thing as a collective, right? So that, DZone is a place you can count on. And if I ever need a ref card, or learn something, that's where I go, is that I still go to the ref card. So
Mm-hmm. And
I'm actually writing the static code analysis ref card that's going to be out in April. We're working on that right now with DZone, which is pretty cool.
how is that process compared to, say, just writing something off the cuff or that comes to your mind? Like, how would you compare those two?
Well, so normally it's very much the same. Your team wants to see the outline, the sponsor wants to see the outline to make sure we're not throwing them under the bus, which is good. So that's a little bit different. And but it's in the end result, I get all my creativity. Having more people review the article, the better for me. So I really appreciate someone else's view because I will be the first to tell you I don't know everything I'm writing about, right? So I'm just doing my best. But then we had one ref card, I don't want to say which one it was, where I think 10% of my material actually remained because I really wasn't an expert. But everything they said was like perfect. They were the experts in the field and it was like, wow, this is great. And then so we get their feedback and kind of massage it. So that was a different kind of experience where I felt like I became the editor and they were the writer after I was the writer. But it turned out to be a really awesome ref card. And I just don't want to
That's
name them, make it sound bad.
That's interesting. That's something we kind of we struggle with on our end, is like a lot of times we want to keep a church and state separation from the advertising and the value of the content. But there's this kind of paradox where the company sponsoring it happened to have the foremost experts in certain technologies. So like you have to walk that line,
Yeah, and well, the good news with that was they were really good about it. So you wouldn't have known that it wasn't like, well, choose product A, and it wasn't like a brochure for them. It was literally the core foundations for the principles that were in the ref card. They were just that in tune with it.
That's awesome. And that's the kind of like, I think that's how, when people get DZone and how to create content for the audience that we write for and publish for, I think they understand that's the best approach to take.
I think so too.
How long does it take you to write one of your articles, and how many revisions do you go through?
Well, so I write in the same Sublime text editor. So I found that that's like the best thing is take all the formatting out and just focus on the words, right? So so it looks really plain and boring. It depends. The newsworthy stuff is like not even an hour because you're like, here's the facts, let's get it out there. But then there's some that can be 3 or 4 hours to actually complete. Now, whenever you do the series and that Heroku stuff, or from AWS to Heroku, there was a lot there, but I was actually doing the work, for a real project and then coming back. So it took longer because I was actually building something. And then whenever you're going to use real source code at the end, then there's that whole aspect of, making sure the Git repository looks good and it has the README and all that information. But at the same time, when I do that, when I do the Git repository, most of the images in the article come right from the Git repo. So once I get that README doc created, the article almost writes itself.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes sense because so you're just kind of filling in the details for somebody who might be new to that, to whatever the code sample is or whatever.
Yeah.
Have you ever co-written something with someone? Have you ever done any collaborative writing?
I don't think I have. No, I mean, other than I wrote the intro for a couple ref cards, but I didn't really work with somebody. I've worked through issues with like Russell is a good friend of mine. We worked together at a couple of different places. So he's kind of like my sounding board. And just leveraging what our team has done over the years. Like, wow, we went through this whole Netflix open source framework implementation. Well, let's write about this because other people need to know about how awesome this is.
Yep. So you're a solo artist then?
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
yeah,
as much as anyone is, right? And so I am, but it's your editors though. They're like, they keep me honest, and it was going less now than it was before, because I would have like, say, Michael come back to me and say, hey, is this really what you want to say here? And maybe we don't need 5 paragraphs about your commute to work. He was like really good about that. Like, yeah, you're probably right. So it's maybe I'm solo, but it's because of working with your team for a really long time to understand how things really work.
Yeah, we're really good at remastering, I'd say.
Yeah. So how have things changed, like for you? Because you've been at DZone longer than I have. You were there when I started, right, in 2015. Yep. And so there's been man, there's all those people that I've worked for as my
so many
editor.
people.
So yeah. So how does that? And then you got Mo back. So like, how has that worked for you? I mean, what have you seen?
It's really interesting because we've been through all sorts of iterations. When I started, we were maybe like a 10-person company, and
wow.
We weren't. Rick Ross, who was the co-founder, I think he was the kind of like at the center of what DZone was, and a lot of the people who'd been on DZone a long time knew him and had a relationship with him. So it was like there was that kind of like. There was some sort of like family feel to DZone at some aspect. And as we started to grow, we started bringing on some really awesome people that did editing and writing, but everyone brought their own kind of different approach to it. And we tried to systematize it over the years, but like we get people who are like you and love to be really like engaged in the feedback process, and that like are writing pretty prolifically, and then we get people who just like want to put something out there and they don't really want the feedback, they just want to put it out as it is. So it's really been interesting to see the kind of different iterations of how our editors form relationships with the authors, and like who's really stuck around. And there's a handful of people like you that have been writing for DZone for a long time. But for the most part, it's, you know, like, I think writing for a lot of people is temperamental. Like they'll do it, they'll go like really passionately into writing for a while and then back off and then maybe back into it again.
I agree. I mean, how often are you like playing those guitars on the wall versus I'm not going to play for a while? Is it the same or not?
Oh, totally the same. Totally the same. Yeah, I think I went, you know, I've probably been playing guitar as long as, well, a lot longer than, probably about as long as you've been working in IT. And
Yeah.
Yeah, I think over the pandemic, I probably went almost the whole year without touching it, because I was just like over it. And I play in a band, so it's like,
Gotcha.
but you totally get it. It's the, you know, like sometimes, I don't know if this happens when you're writing, but sometimes when you're doing something creative, you can get stuck in these like patterns that you cannot break out of unless you take a step back. Do you feel the same way about writing?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, definitely. And so, you know, it's, I saw that even in my real job when I was not a consultant, where it's like, man, I know I've got to do all this stuff and I don't want to do any of these things. I want to do this over here, but I'm not allowed to, right? So,
Yep.
so that becomes my motivation. It's like, well, let me get this stuff out of the way so I can do my stuff. And it's like, well, let me just push through this last article, this last part of this article, so I can now focus on the next one. Because I'm not one to like start an article, get it 50% done, and then shelf it. I just kind of like when I keep pushing through, and but there is times that by the time when I submit it and your editors are looking at it, that I go back and edit it again because maybe I thought of something, you know, took a step away. It's like, oh wow, I totally wasn't seeing the forest because of the trees, right? Or
Yep.
whatever, however you say.
Yeah, that seems like a super helpful step in the process, because it's like sometimes you can just be so deep in something. I'm sure coding is the same way, and like, you know, many other things. Is like you're so buried in it, it's hard to see the bigger picture.
Yeah. And so the funny thing that I've run into though is, you know, supporting your existing code, right? And you have this block of code and you look at it, you wrote it a year ago. So now you're looking at it, it's like, I know what's wrong with this, right? And so you read the comments, you're like, the old me didn't know what he's doing. So you go through and you actually like fix it and you get right to the end. And that's when the original comment all of a sudden makes sense again. You're like, oh
crap.
nice. So you actually have to like revert the change because there was nothing wrong with it to begin with. You just so that's, I don't know if that's an age thing or if this is a me thing, but
do you find yourself revisiting stuff you've written and thinking that's a totally different person who wrote that?
Yeah, of course. Even this, the project of 18 months ago, we were under the basis that we're going live next week. So you can't write this code fast enough, right? Well, 2 years later, we kind of went live. So now it's like, well, it's working, but you're calling the database 20 million times instead of 2. Like, oh yeah, we probably should fix that, right? So that's the things you learn in that second bypass is like, hey, we got it working. And when I used it in my local environment, just me, it was great. Then you put 10,000 users on the application, all of a sudden the database is screaming. So that's the stuff that we're doing now. It's like, okay, how can we get through this crazy N+1 scenario where the database is calling the database based on a database call, right? So let's get away from that.
Do you like, so we only have a few more minutes, so I want to ask a couple of higher level questions, but I do want to follow up on that. It's like, do you prefer, when you're writing, do you like to write about like specific problems, or do you like to write more broadly about like concepts, or like where is your sweet spot, do you think?
Man, I like to write about both, and I think that's what keeps it fresh, right? I'm going to write broad. I'm going to write about Agile. I'm going to dive into Heroku or this whole part about Java. You know, it's that opportunity that you give us as writers to be able to go wherever we want to go, right? So that's the answer is both, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
All of the above.
Interesting. Okay. So on that note, I would ask you, with a few minutes left, what
Yep.
advice do you have for either aspiring writers, people who are just starting, or people maybe who have been writing but are stuck in a groove or something, like they want to break out
Yeah.
of what they've been doing?
Well, yeah, take a step back and ask yourself why do you want to write? Why do you want to underscore, right? Whatever that is. Why do you want to be in a band? Okay,
Mhm.
is it the same reason the when you started? What are you doing to make yourself better in that regard? What are you doing? What's missing? How can you learn? What part of your passion is missing to make that a reality? You know.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice. And how, on that note, are you often asked to write on behalf of your company? I know you're
Yeah,
motivated
yeah,
a
yeah.
lot
It's funny.
personally, but
Wait,
do you write for your company?
are you looking at my email? Because I actually have Dave Morris, our marketing guy at Clean Slate. The subject is writing for our blog. And so I don't know if you can see that. I don't know, but
I
yeah,
can't
that's
see that.
we're gonna start that hopefully this year. It's tough because I don't know that limits my box, right? What Clean
Yeah, you
Slate
get
does
some
and what I want to write
constraints.
about. Yeah, so
Yeah,
I don't know, but I'm sure we can make it work.
I think you could probably make it work. Yeah, you know, as long as as long
But
as you
man,
keep it somewhat in bounds.
I wasn't sure we were gonna have an hour of material, and I even made some notes, and we got through all of my notes, and so hopefully wasn't boring. But it's like I can't thank DZone enough. I mean, November 2015 to now has just been a part of my life that's better because of DZone for sure.
Well, I would say the feeling is mutual, and as someone who's been here that whole time, I'd say like the people that really invest their time in sharing with people who come to DZone. I mean, that's what makes DZone what it is. Like,
Yeah.
really, your content and the content of so many others is the backbone of what we do, and like we would not exist without it. So really, all the thanks is due to you, not us. We're just here to make it easier.
I'm going to disagree with you on that because look at you guys. You have a great team.
Well, I like to think that too.
Yeah.
So we have 3 minutes left. I want to
All right.
open it up. We still have many people in here. I want to see if anybody who's here has any questions for you.
Oh, no.
I have a question if I can jump in. Can you hear me?
I
Yeah, we
can.
can.
So, yeah, first of all, thanks, John. Actually, I really enjoyed this conversation, by the way. And it was a really hectic day for me. But yeah, I enjoyed it, actually. So that was nice to see how you take this journey. And thanks to Kellet, because you made a lot of nice questions. That was really useful for me. And what I like about John is actually he is also putting lights to the area that usually most of the writers, I mean, in the IT, are not doing that. Recently, I was going through his articles, and there was one article, the title was IT Lessons Aren't Just Learned at the Office. And I
Yeah,
really like
exactly.
the way you actually said through the story, and that was really interesting. I love it. I have one question because I found that something difficult for myself, and I think you made it. And this is something I really want to do, same as you do. That you
Yeah.
said you write almost about everything comes to your mind, and I feel that I have some sort of filter in my mind not to write everything, just to think upfront about if things could be interesting for people or not. How did you tackle this part? I mean, maybe you had that in your mind or you didn't. Just I'm curious.
Uh, I don't know. I mean, it just comes to me. It's
Yeah,
we're watching the Tiger King, and it's I don't know if you've seen it, but it's
yeah,
bizarre. And
I have
yes,
seen it.
you watch the first two, and you're like, what the heck? And then by the end, nothing surprises you anymore. It's like, but that's our world. I mean, Larry Ellison used to disrupt the industry all the time just because he wanted to, and now we've got Elon Musk doing his thing. And so there's just these interesting personalities in our environment, and we are the Tiger King. We're living that world. I mean, that's us, if you really think about it.
Yeah, but have you got any feedback? Like, for example, you started writing whatever comes to your mind. You got a kind of feedback. Okay, what the hell is this, for example, you wrote?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I just always was look for a way to learn a lesson. And gosh, maybe that's because all the times I had to go to church, because I felt like I had every pastor would do that in like my faith. It's like, you know, how is like the tractor not starting? You know, this tractor didn't start. Well, is your battery charged up for Jesus or something? You know, it's like they'd always turn it into something, and it's like, well, maybe that's
Yeah.
what, I don't know.
Yeah, that's really inspiring. Thanks again for your articles, for your contribution.
Hey,
Yeah.
and you won some awards too, right? You won at least one award, I remember, right?
He did.
Sorry?
A DZone
Didn't
award.
you win? Yeah, you won at
Yeah,
least one
yeah,
DZone
yeah,
award.
yeah. I won the trend reports.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, Ali Reza was
Yeah.
awesome on our trend reports last year. He wrote a bunch of
Thank you.
articles, so and helped with just
Yeah.
thinking about them.
Actually, what the reason I liked it, one of the questions you asked Kellet about the motivation of people, and actually I really love that, because I think most of the people are not coming for the page views or the money, because most of the people are coming here because this is a place that they are listened. They have some people to be listening. You know, they're listening to
Oh
us.
yeah.
And I think we are really frustrated in most of the companies we have been working. We are always trying to find people just to listen to us, not to accept us. Because in necessarily we are not getting the acceptance in the DZone, but we are, we are listened. I mean, that's an amazing part in DZone, that you have a freedom. It's a free environment. You can bring whatever you think, and you can help people with that. And you can find also other people that think the same, and that's amazing. I really think about that these days, that how DZone actually changed my life within even last year, because when I lost my job last year, DZone made me really active. And actually I did those trend reports on the time that I lost my job, and
Oh,
that
that's
was
great.
amazing, because I had a feeling that, okay, I lost that job, but I still am active member of the place, that I'm not going to be fired. It's not the same concept, and it
Exactly
kept
right.
me working, and I'm really happy with that. And yeah, these guys are really amazing at this one. Yeah.
Well, and now your brand has improved because of those trend reports. When you talk to a prospective client or employer, they can say, well, what's your experience? Well, here, read these trend reports. This is things I've taken my time to show you my understanding of this particular topic. So, and
Yeah.
the thing I was going to say earlier too is we tried to get, I don't know if it was you, Kellet, or who it was, we wanted a developer portal. We wanted it for years, right? It's like stuff that just dev life, right? Well, I think what's happened is every portal has become that, right? So yeah, it's DevOps, but from a DevOps, it's dev life from a DevOps perspective, from a Java. So we just kind of pushed everything together without having to have a new portal.
I think that's
Yeah,
very
exactly.
true. I think that's happened, and I think people are doing writing that way more and more, which is really nice.
Yeah.
It's like
It's what we've needed,
two are
honestly.
coming together.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks, Ali Rosa.
Yeah. Thank you.
Did we have any other questions? I think we had one more question, and then we can wrap up. I know we're over. If John, if you have to go too, I don't know.
No,
if you
I'm
got
okay.
something.
I'm okay.
Okay. I think we have one question that says, is there any checklist / guidelines for how-to technical articles? So I'm guessing are there, what is the best approach for a how-to article?
Yeah, exactly. And it's to me, it's simple. We talked about earlier. I have the title in mind because that's what why am I wanting to write this? Well, that's got to be the title. And then the outline, which has an intro and a conclusion. And then I write the intro and the conclusion, and then I fill in those inner spots. So, the 3 to 4 bullet points in between. And then it typically is that right area that I work
Awesome. I hope that answers your question, Nagapan.
And it looks like that Carol totally did it on the
I think we could debate that for an hour, another hour. Okay, well, you know, I think we can wrap up there. This has been really awesome.
Thank you.
You're pretty fun to interview, and you've got lots of awesome stories, and I really enjoy your perspective on things and your energy. And I still stand by my statement. I think you'd be great on YouTube or Twitch. Maybe we'll start a DZone video channel. You can do that.
Oh, that'd be fun. We should do that. That'd be fun.
Yep.
Blake, can you make that happen?
Yep, we'll put that in Blake's hands because that way we'll know it'll get done.
Yeah, it sounds good.
So thanks again, and I'm really looking forward to sharing this with others. And I think just the information you shared hopefully will act as a really great inspiration and some really practical points for other people who are writing. And I look forward to many more articles from you.
Thank you so much, man. It's great to talk with you. Thanks
Yeah,
everybody
same
for
here.
watching too.
Yep. All right, man. Well, thanks a lot, and have a good rest of your day, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
See you.